Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. We are located on the land of the Eastern Cherokee and Southern Iroquois. Good morning. It's good to be here and to be with all of you today. I'm Carrie Moss, and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm a member of the UU Fellowship of Clemson's Worship Associate team. This fellowship is a religious community grounded in the values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, with liberating love at the center of Unitarian Universalism. In this space, you are invited to engage with worship in the ways that feel comfortable throughout the service. That might include clapping or vocal responses or remaining quiet. If you're visiting with us this morning, welcome. If you are joining us online, we are glad you are here with us virtually. Are there any newcomers who would like to stand and introduce themselves today? Yes, please.
Sorry, this way our folks online can hear you too.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I live in Easley, and I have been meaning to come. What spurred me really is I went to a funeral yesterday for a friend at a denominational, and I was like, I really liked the fellowship and the feeling of being at home, so I'm kind of looking for a home.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you, Michelle.
Sorry for your loss.
Hello, my name is Rachel. This is little Leia, sorry. We're from Anderson. We have a large background in Southern Baptist churches, and we just needed to find a home as well, and one that's inclusive. We're a big LGBTQ family, and we just want to be accepted for who we are and share in love and fellowship, and hopefully this is it for us. So, you want to say hi?
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, welcome, both of you. Thank you. I have a few announcements. On Friday, July 25th at 2 p.m., there will be a live stream of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, but we ask that you arrive a little bit early because they'll start right at 2 for the live stream. It's led by Sir Ian McKellen and an all-trans and non-binary cast. This is a one-night-only rehearsed reading from the theater group Trans What You Will at London's The Space Theatre, and will broadcast globally via live stream. Described as a joyful act of protest and pleasure activism, celebrating gender diversity at a time when trans representation remains under threat. The performance precedes the beginning of London's Trans Plus Pride. Bring your favorite theater snack and come join the fun in the social room at the UUFC. Also, we have circle dinners start in September. Register by August 10th. Circle dinners are a wonderful way to get to know members and friends of our fellowship. We encourage your participation. Dinners begin in September and continue for 5 months, skipping November and December. The host provides the entree. Others bring the food designated on the rotation chart: salad, bread, appetizer, or dessert. Contact Jackie Renzi with any questions you might have. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Holly Brown. My pronouns are they, them, and today's service is going to be reflecting upon our annual General Assembly, and it's going to be sharing from all of our delegates that were there a little bit about their experience. And hopefully it won't be too dry, because we're going to share the things that we really loved so that you might be inspired to participate in the future. In the spirit of coming together to share this service, I've asked both Carrie and Emily if they would join me for our opening words that are done in 3 parts.
We come today to gather together as Unitarian Universalists.
We come today to join in spirit of love and service of life.
We come today to be part of the stream of this living tradition.
In our gathering, may we be blessed.
Our shared faith is made up of the people who gather.
Our shared faith is called by the beacon of love and justice.
Our shared faith is breathed into life by the questions and the actions of the people.
Through our faith, may we strive to use our hearts, minds, and deeds to bring more love, justice, and truth into the world.
In the Latin hymn, Ubi Caritas, we sing, "Where charity and love are, God is there."
In this spirit, we affirm that when we gather in love and justice, we open ourselves to life itself.
In our opening, may we know ourselves to be blessed. May we seek to serve life, each with our own gifts and in our own ways, always doing so in love. May we know ourselves held in the love that is always with us.
Thank you. Come, let us worship together this morning. In the spirit of worship and doing things together, I invite you to rise in body, mind, or spirit, wherever you are, to sing number 311, Let It Be a Dance.
Morning, while we say our words of affirmation as printed in your bulletin. We gather together in a spirit of love, with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another. Okay, so our time for all ages this morning is going to be a little bit different. Usually I tell you a story and we see slides up on the screen, but this morning I'm going to do something that a lot of congregations do on a regular basis. Some do it pretty much every Sunday morning. And we haven't really ever done it here at UUFC, so I thought it'd be an interesting change to see what we all think about it. And it's called the Wonder Box. You see I have a box here. It's a very pretty box, isn't it? It's got really nice honeybees on it. And there's something inside of it, which obviously none of you can see right now. But I'm going to ask you to do something that we do with our kids a lot, especially when we do spirit play, which is to ask wandering questions. So I'm going to invite you all to wonder about what might be inside of this box. And if you would like, to make a guess out loud about what you think might be in this box. Anybody? A bear. I heard.
Maybe it's some honey.
Some honey, yeah, bees. A book. That's a good one. A ballot. Ooh. All right. Any other ideas? A candle. Bell, book, and candle. Okay, so now I'm going to ask for a volunteer to come up and find out what's in this box. You want to come up? What was your name again? Leia. I have a dog named Leia. Not to imply anything, I'm sorry. But okay, so you want to go ahead and open the box and find out what's in there? You can go ahead and pull them out and show everybody. Lanyards. Yeah, these are actually name badges, right? Because you see they've got names on them. Yeah. And we have name badges here at UUFC. Okay? I see a lot of people wearing badges like mine. Why do we wear those? Anybody? So we can get to know each other, right? And sometimes so we can remember each other's names if you're like me and you can never remember anybody's name, right? And we also have, some of us have our pronouns on here. And you'll see on these, I'll hold up one and you hold up the other. Or maybe Reverend Holly can hold up one. We have names. See, this one has Reverend Holly's name on it. And this one has my name on it. And our pronouns. And these are badges from GA, from General Assembly. Y'all know what General Assembly is, right? Right? Our annual meeting. Oh, yeah. Our annual meeting. So this year it was in Baltimore, and these were our name badges. And I just wanted to point out some things about these name badges. For example, what's that right there?
It's a green dot.
It's a green dot. That one has one too. And when we got our name badges at General Assembly, we were given a choice of a green dot, a yellow dot, or a red dot to put on our badges. Any ideas what those dots might mean?
Whether you can be hugged or not.
Yeah, that's part of it, whether you could be hugged or not, because it was about social distancing. Because we were trying to be very safe at General Assembly for people, especially people who might be immunocompromised. So if you had a green dot, that meant people could come within 3 feet of you, okay? If you had a yellow dot, what do you think the distance might have been? Sorry? Caution, yeah. So it was more like 3 to 6 feet. You'd be more cautious with that person. And red dot, don't come near me. Well, it meant 6 feet. But, of course, if you wanted to come closer, you had to ask permission of the person. And, of course, at General Assembly, always ask permission before you just run up and hug somebody. You don't do that. You ask permission for any bodily contact because it's about bodily autonomy and consent.
And sometimes asking for consent for me when I knew somebody was like, to hold out my arms and see if they responded.
So there are some other things about these badges that are different. What are these?
These are, I can't think of the name. Ribbons.
Ribbons, yeah, there's lots and lots of ribbons. And both of these have a ribbon that says delegate, because Reverend Holly and I were both delegates, which meant we got to vote on things, and that was one of the ways that you could identify who was a voting delegate at the assembly. And then we have some completely different ones. Well, we both have this one that says #RE is ministry, because, obviously I'm kind of into RE. And Reverend Holly has one that says, got members? What do you think that ribbon would be about? Missionary work?
Being members of the church.
Being members of the church, yeah, we would like to have lots of members, and we'd like to welcome new members, right?
Yes. So this was at a booth that was talking about membership and administration and things like that in the exhibit hall. That's the word I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and then these two, what do those say?
It says, wait, these two? The pink one?
Let's just do this one first. Just spell out the letters.
LREDA members.
Yeah, and then the other one says, I love.
I love LEADA.
LREDA is, actually we pronounce it LOREDA. It's an acronym for the Liberal Religious Educators Association. And it is the professional organization for people that do my kind of job. And I happen to be a member of the LOREDA organization. So when I went by their booth, I got my little ribbon that says I'm a proud member of LOREDA and that I love LOREDA, because I do, because it makes my job so much easier to have that organization behind me so that we can collaborate, we can educate ourselves, we can learn more about how to do this job the best we can for our congregations. And it's just a wonderful community to be a part of. And then I think Emily, and Carrie, you might have had one too. This one here, do you know what that says?
Defying Nazis since 1940.
Yeah, defying Nazis since 1940. And this was a ribbon that we picked up at the Unitarian Universalist service
committee.
Service
Committee.
Sorry, that word just went straight out of my head for a second.
That happens.
As a UU, that shouldn't be a thing.
We really do like our committees.
So, but this is a reference to the fact that the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee was basically founded in 1940 as a response to the plight of European Jews during the height of the World War II. So, there were all kinds of different ones. Did you want to say anything about your last one?
Well, I also wanted to point out that I have a pen on mine that says Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association, which is something that I'm a member of, and we had a big gathering right before General Assembly with ministers from across the country. So I have a little button that I added to my lanyard for that. And then I have a colleague that makes interesting, sometimes funny, sometimes even controversial ribbons that you can pick up. And this year, his ribbon was, "What is this year's fake fight?" And as a minister's kid, seeing one of my dad's churches fight over whether we got a baby grand piano or an upright piano because somebody else had paid or donated money for the upright organ. And I tell you, that was a big fight, but instead of dealing with the feelings behind it, it became all about the piano. So sometimes we have fake fights in churches, and so that's what that's about.
Okay, so thank you very much, Leah. Thank you, Reverend Holly. You can put them back in the box.
This is the time we set aside for the offering in order to give toward the financial vitality of this community. Also, 25% of the undesignated collection each week goes to an organization in the local community that we partner with. For the month of July, we are partnering with Clemson Community Care. Along with other congregations in the Clemson community, we were responsible for creating this organization back in the 1980s and 1990s, and it provides a food bank and a number of social services and referrals to low-income families in the community. Each week, we also collect non-perishable food for Clemson Community Care's food bank. So I invite the ushers to collect the offering.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So this is a time during our service each week that we share our joys, our concerns, our sorrows, those things that bring us to celebrations and those things that weigh heavily upon our hearts. And so as I read our number of joys and concerns today, Holly, could I ask you if you'd be the one to place the stones in the bowl? Each of these stones represents a joy or a concern that I read, and the bowl that they're placed in by Holly represents our shared community together. And I have a joy from this Holly, that Friday she leaves for her 6th pilgrimage to Chautauqua with friends Anne and Sandy. Yes. Have a joy from Kathy Crane that she and Joe Harris had a joyful visit with Steve Afrigola yesterday. Steve welcomes visitors. Please know he's away Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for his dialysis. Have a joy from Barbara Stroop celebrating our move to South Carolina 3 years ago this week. Well, we're so glad you continue to stick around. Yes, yes. Have a joy from Martha Alexander that Martha and Jim celebrated his 88th birthday on July 17th with candles and his favorite peach pie. And Martha sent me a picture of his candles in the peach pie, which was a little bit different, but seems like a very fitting. Yes. And I have a joy and concern from Paula, a joy that we have found lovely new home for their 2 cats, concerns that we have one more cat who needs a new family. And if you would like a cat or know somebody that needs a cat, talk to Paula. Yes. And Donna Brazil shares that I appreciate prayers and positive thoughts of so many here during radiation, divine healing comes sometimes from you who are sitting and standing here now. Thank you. Yes. And I offer one more stone for all of those joys and concerns. Oh, you know what? I forgot to. I have 2 in my script, so I'm going to wait and do that last one. So I have a concern that Audrey Lanford shared earlier this week, that she was saddened to hear of the passing of Andrea Gibson after a 4-year-long battle with terminal ovarian cancer. Andrea was a Colorado poet laureate who wrote extensively about love and gender exploration. They will be greatly missed and warmly remembered. Rest in power, Andrea, and thank you for everything. And then I have a joy from Kathy Crane that she had a pen pal for 8 years through the UU prison ministry, Worthy Now, and that person has been paroled and is now free. Kathy has been assigned a new pen pal that goes by Teresa and uses they, them pronouns and is incarcerated in Texas's largest prison for men. There are around 200 UU inmates waiting for pen pals. And now I will offer one final stone for all of those joys and concerns that remain quiet and tender upon our hearts this morning. Thank you. And take a moment to hold all of those in some tenderness in our heart this morning, and for all that is going on in our world that we see day in and day out. And I invite you into a moment of musical meditation and just settling into yourself. As I mentioned earlier, our service today is going to be a little bit different. You're going to hear from 5 of us that went to GA, 4 in person and 1 online. And I want to name that General Assembly is our big business meeting that takes place with our denomination, the Unitarian Universalist Association, every year since its founding in 1961. And this is where participants gather to worship, witness, learn, connect, and make policy decisions about the association using the democratic process. While anyone can attend, congregations must certify annually for their voting delegates and are assigned voting delegates based on how large or small the congregation is. Now, in recent decades, there has been a shift to multi-platform. Before the pandemic, you were beholden to whatever the schedule was and whatever the time zone you were in, which was a little tricky if you were several hours different. But since the pandemic, during the pandemic rather, there was a move to be entirely online for 2020 and 2021. Then they started with this idea of a multi-platform structure where there was some people in person and some people that were attending online, and trying to make the schedule where it would kind of fit for everyone as much as possible across time zones. And every year there's a theme. Usually the theme is different every year. And I doubt anybody has paid that close of attention, but in as denomination, people propose what the theme is going to be about. And based on those proposals, a theme is chosen every year, and then people formulate workshops and worship services that fit that particular theme. And so returning to Meet the Moment, it started as an idea and then became an action, a praxis this year. And they had this new thing called wave cohorts. And so over the course of 3 days, the idea was that we would attend the same wave cohort. Now, each of these were about meeting the moment in different areas of church life. So one was a general, broad idea. And then there were ones on intersectional approach with anti-racism, anti-oppression in mind. There were ones for emerging adults, ones for administrative growth, that membership piece of things. Generosity as a way of practicing our values, caring for parents, and shaping the UU future, and whole church religious education, which Karen is going to share a little bit more about later. This work isn't done, however. We had these discussions, and the first day had the second day that built on top of that, and then the third day, we had questions and prompts that led us to deeper discussion on this topic rather than having several different workshops. And there will be opportunities for congregations and regional places to explore these topics further beyond what we talked about at GA in the coming year. And this is in a hope to do phases that engage more and more Unitarian Universalists. And there were the business meetings. Some of the business meetings were long, some of them not as long as planned, which led to some challenges that Holly's going to speak about in a moment. But in addition to these wave cohorts and workshops and worship services on special topics, there was a WARE lecture from Amara Jones, which was an amazing topic. We've had this thing called a WARE lecture for years and years, and we've had some really great folks that have come and talked to our association, including the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Ibram X. Kendi, I think Howard Thurman was in the mix, and several others over the years that I cannot remember all of them. And one of my delightful things, and I don't think I've talked to Cory about this yet, but there has been a release of a brand new UU hymnal. It's all virtual. They've already made slides for us, although I really appreciate Barbara Stroop making the slides that we often have, although some of them are older and newer, and some of them I copy and paste wrong and things don't, work out exactly right. But we have this new hymnal that we got to go do a sing-along with if we wanted to on Sunday morning at GA. And some of the songs were definitely more singable by congregations, and some of them needed somebody's voice, like my friend Melissa Jeter, who wrote a song, and her voice is super powerful, and that one might be a choir song piece. But it was 4.5 days of meeting with other UUs from around the country, and even some outside of the United States that were there, and engaging in that way. So today, I have Holly Ulbrich that's going to come up first and share a little bit about her experience, followed by Emily Hiebel, Carrie Moss, and Karen Hiebel.
I'm Holly Ulbrich. My pronouns are she, her, and I've been a member of this congregation for exactly 35 years, during which time I have attended at least 12 GAs. I count them by the cities they were in, and then there were 2 virtual ones. So I have a feeling I'm missing one somewhere. But anyway, they've been everywhere from Quebec to Long Beach, California. And as some of you know, I'm also chair of our Social Action Committee. And so I decided that I would go as a business delegate. A business delegate just goes to the business meetings, and if you want to, the last Sunday worship service. And so I attended all of the business meetings, which didn't sound very exciting, but I went because there were some social action issues that I wanted to get a deeper feel for. One was a thing called actions of immediate witness, and we're only allowed to approve of 3, and they had 5 proposed on the assembly. So they made presentations on each one, and then we got to vote, and I got to experience a new platform that was much better than the one that I used a few years ago to vote remotely. At the end of each session, you get an email saying, okay, go to this, and your ballot will be there ready and waiting for you, and you bing, 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 submit. And we'll let you know tomorrow, because you may be voting at 5 o'clock your time, but other people are in different time zones. So they had to allow all the way to Hawaii before they'd had the election results. So we got the results the next day. So I thought that was a really nice improvement. I should point out that not only have I been a member of this congregation for 35 years, but I've been a member of the League of Women Voters for 58 years. Including the one I helped organize here in Clemson in 1968. And I'm a big believer in democracy, and specifically in democratic process. A lot of people are more invested in outcomes, but I always believe that you've got to have good process if you're going to have good outcomes. Bad process never leads to good outcomes. So I'm sort of focused on the process. I'm trained as a parliamentarian. Not well trained, but trained adequately enough so that I'm frequently called on to do it. So I was really interested in not just the decisions we made, but the process that we used to make them. And in some of these GAs, I noticed that GAs, many Unitarian Universalists, like the sound of their own voice. So they would speak as often and as frequently as possible. And so they use parliamentary procedure, which I admit you really have to use when you've got thousands of people there voting. I understand that. And so their typical process was whatever issue we were going to discuss, they would set up 2 microphones, a pro and a con. And so people would line up with the pro and line up with the con, and they'd alternate between them, which is fine if you're voting a bylaw up or down. That's a great way to do it. But when you're trying to choose between alternatives, it's not necessarily good, because I wouldn't want to get up there and say, well, I'm against housing because I want to have immigration. Okay? That doesn't make sense. So you'd wind up with a big line at the pro microphone and no line at the con microphone, separating it into each one into an either or choice didn't make any sense. So there were complaints about that procedure, not about the actions of immediate witness. We did approve 3 actions of immediate witness, 1 dealing with immigration, 1 dealing with LGBTQ, and 1 dealing with autocracy. So we did deal with those 3, and we, as congregations, need to be aware of them, and Social Action Committee will be discussing them further. But the other one was to adopt a study and action, which is a 3-year process where we educate ourselves and look for opportunities to act on a specific issue. And there were 3 proposals. One was on prisons, one was on housing, and one was on fat shaming. The fat shaming one never gained any traction, but there was a pretty big division between the ones who really wanted to work on affordable housing and the ones who really wanted to work on prisons, which made sense to me. But just because I was pro, and I happen to be pro the prison one, but just because I was pro-prison doesn't mean I was anti-housing. I care about both of them. So pro and con mics didn't make any sense. Well, they did that anyway. So of course, everybody would line up when we were talking about housing, and they'd all be for housing. And after 3 or 4 of them, they said, well, there's nobody at the con mic, so we'll have to cut off the discussion. And then they went on and did the same thing with the one on prisons and the one on fat shaming. Well, they have something called process observation, and people complained to the process observer that they really wanted to have more conversation about these issues before they decided how to vote. So as a result, they came back and they said, okay, we don't think we did this thing right. So we'll have 14 minutes to discuss why you should vote for housing and why you should vote for prisons. And that meant that people can get up and say, I'm for affordable housing, but I prefer prisons because. And that was a much better conversation. And I was particularly pleased because I voted for prisons the first time and housing won, but with a fuller discussion, prisons won. So welcome to the Prison Project. You'll be hearing more about it. It was a great experience at GA. They managed a hybrid program. I don't know what the other people's experience is going to do, so let me turn it over to the next person to share their trip to GA.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I want to start with a disclaimer. A few days ago, I had a transatlantic flight, and so the jet lag is starting to hit. And also, I have been reintroduced to the local pollen varieties. So if my ability to read is maybe a little touch and go, that is what is going on there. So a disclaimer at the start. This was my first GA. I was in the emerging adult category as a baby 22-year-old. But I was raised UU in this congregation, which made me sort of an anomaly at UU as well. And though the discussions were fairly well-paced this time, my understanding from veteran attendees was that they had been longer in the past, and this time it was moving at a little bit more clipped pace. That said, the longest debates revolved around the revote on the CSAI selection, which Holly just mentioned. And that is the selected congressional study action items. Or we call it a CSAI because we love an acronym, whether it's good or not. And this is a social justice issue selected at GA to be studied and explored by each individual congregation for 2 years and then brought back together. We experienced scheduling shenanigans where some of the speakers missed their slot in front of the podium and general attendance was low for the first debate. As Holly said, people voiced concerns, and as a result, a vote to redo the debate was proposed. That vote to redo the debate passed, and so we then voted again after another debate on the CSAI. Parliamentary procedure is a beautiful thing. In order to allow everyone to really show the work they had done on their proposals and also to voice concerns or preferences. I will admit my vote changed between these two discussions. And to my surprise, the most persuasive of the new speakers were those who showed up in the call lines for each proposal. And it's not what I expected. And the proposed CSAIs were fat liberation, abolition around the U.S. prison systems, and housing justice. And I wanted to clarify that it wasn't like a contest to me on which was the most worthy topic. I think in a time where we have an onslaught of constant crises, where everyone needs immediate help, everyone is immediately struggling. As a member of the queer community and someone who studied migrant health And as someone in public health, I am very aware of these constant crises and things that need our immediate action. But what became clear to me in the second round, and what this item really is about, is looking back on ourselves and seeing what, and studying back and looking back at ourselves and saying, where do we need to grow? Rather than responding to an immediate crisis, still having that space to respond and grow within ourselves. One of the very first events I attended at GA was a WAVE cohort workshop on trans rights. The moderator in her closing statements quoted James Baldwin, quote, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." And that was a quote I heard a lot at GA as part of the Meet the Moment theme. But in his essay, where that quote is from, called "As Much Truth as We Can Bear," it has another meaning and another interpretation. It is a call to introspection and self-accountability as well. Perfect about ourselves, imperfect about our society, and places where we can grow if we want to enact the change in the world that we want to see. And the people I heard in the cons, toxic goal or a toxic expectation. We will never as a faith be immediately perfect in every social action issue. We have places to grow, and that's a beautiful thing. That is why we have these studies items. And as a faith, evolution and growth is at our heart. And that's why we have these. And based on what I heard in these debates, we are already engaging the most work to support and face the housing instability crisis. And I hope we continue to do that, and I'm sure we will continue to do that. But I altered my vote because I saw the most space to grow in terms of fat liberation. I understand that is not what you guys voted for before we left, and I hope that you are not disappointed in me for having maybe not done what you told me. But I did what I thought was best at that time, after hearing what the change and what people had to say. And making sure that I made a choice that I felt was best suited to the format of the study. And it was nice to see that we as a faith were not only seeking to change outwardly in the world in a moment of crisis, but also making sure that we had that space internally to continue to grow and to continue to be better people and have that space for introspection and enact the changes we would like to see in the world by first changing the places we would like to change in ourselves. So anyway, that was GA for me. Bye.
Okay. Being around so many like-minded individuals in a designated area for those 4 days quenched my spiritual thirst. I found myself asking, what are skills that engage the spirit, and how can they be developed? Music, dance, personal reflections, and quick writes were my ways of engagement. I left feeling a spark. I left the conference asking myself how this newly found spark can provide hope for our congregation. The conference invited me to have a more deliberate engagement with the fellowship that draws from my own sense of worth within the system. I asked myself, what is my identity in our church space? How vulnerable am I willing to be in the name of growth and love? What am I holding, and how is it serving the church community? What might happen if I let go and lean into a child self? Lean in and be transformed. Repeatedly, the conference seemed to stress how the moment is calling for change and how that change can occur if we continuously ask ourselves what love is calling us to do in this moment. That said, each moment we are embracing a particular story we tell ourselves. One of the most impactful aspects of General Assembly for me were the personal testimonials that people shared throughout, whether it was in the poetry workshop, keynote speaker, or dealing with the congregational study action issues, CSAIs. Each story reminded me that stories are all we have. For example, my experience at GA started with a compliment I gave to the woman in front of me in line for dinner. She invited me to join her, and there I sat with her and her friend exchanging a quilt by our time's end. Some of the stories I heard reinforced my own sense of self, and some expanded my sense of self and what I thought I believed. For example, those who shared testimonials regarding the fat liberation, CSAI, changed my mind about the importance of studying this topic and its feeling of urgency. For me, there's the communal story we form through dance, music, and worship that is made richer by the personal stories we share through testimonials and reflections. The more I engaged with specific elements within GA, the more I got out of GA, the richer my story and spiritual connection became. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm going to be a little bit more long-winded than the people ahead of me. My position here is Director of Faith Formation, and as Reverend Holly said, one of the WAVE cohorts was about Whole Church RE, and those of you who know me know that I can be quite passionate about aimed to be a multi-generational experience that not only allows children to attend with a parent or guardian, but seeks to make families with children feel welcome. And that's a big difference between just allowing children to be present and making them feel welcome. So one of the things I enjoyed most about GA was seeing so many different ages in the hallways, in the exhibit hall, and in the event rooms. There were adults there who were there for their first GA, and some who were there for their 10th, 20th, or like one man I met, their 30th. Wow. And by the way, this was my 5th GA, but the first one in person. There were teens who were there connecting with UUs of their age from all around the country, and perhaps engaging in a little friendly competition about who could collect the most ribbons on their name badges. Reverend Holly told me that they saw one teen who had ribbons so far down they had to wrap it up around their neck. It was quite a sight. There were elementary school kids posing for pictures on the skywalk between the convention hall and the hotel. Kids sometimes running a little too far ahead and sometimes lagging tiredly behind while being gently urged by their adult to keep going so they could get back to the room in time for their online event. There were toddlers and babies and strollers, which were available for rent. The strollers, not the toddlers or the babies. It was a beautiful cross-section of Unitarian Universalism, and like at other GAs, childcare was available, and there were family cohorts and meetups. But what particularly caught my attention was the chance to learn more about something that they were calling Whole Church RE, which is something that was created by the UUA Lifespan Engagement staff, which they describe as a toolbox of resources to expand faith development beyond RE classrooms and integrate them into congregational and group settings. So I was curious to learn more about what that meant and to see something of how it might look in practice. But first, I'd like to offer a little background, and this is where I'm going to get a little long-winded. Even before the pandemic, religious educators were becoming aware of some major changes in our congregation's religious education programs, and this was a trend that was across denominations, though, not just UU. It was getting harder and harder to find enough volunteers to staff multiple classrooms on Sunday morning. Attendance numbers were dropping, and Sunday school had to compete with the demands of soccer tournaments, dance recitals, a host of other extracurricular activities for those precious weekend hours. Religious educators started talking about the death of Sunday school and how the traditional model that was so volunteer-heavy was no longer sustainable and also wasn't meeting the needs of our children and families. So the question became, if this isn't working, what do we do instead? Now, religious educators are nothing if not creative and resourceful, and lots of new ideas bubbled up. Things like spirit play based on the Montessori model, the workshop rotation model, makerspace, and so many more. We learned a lot about the many different ways to engage our kids with Unitarian Universalism and to give them meaningful and fun ways to grow and deepen their spiritual development. We've identified best practices like story, song, embodied learning, play, creative movement, artistic expression, problem solving, making, ritual, and ceremony. We've seen how powerful and important it is for our kids to find a sense of community within their RE spaces. But one of the things that we have also noticed is how separated our congregations can be based on age. We tend to speak of religious education as something that the children and youth do on Sunday mornings while the adults are in worship services. But as a faith tradition, the majority of our members came to Unitarian Universalism from other or no faith communities. The result is something of a disconnect. Families and kids have often not fully integrated into the community, and many of our adults have a lower engagement with their UU faith and identity formation than the children and youth do. This is where the whole church RE conversation begins, by recognizing three things. First, we as UUs have a need for a shared experience that connects people across our myriad differences, including generational, to build a covenantal community, which is essential for our non-creedal faith. Second, we know that lifespan faith development plays a critical role in shaping and strengthening UU identity, not only within each of us as individuals, whatever our age or where we are on our spiritual journey, but also among us as we learn and grow together in community. And third, we in RE have so many uniquely engaging practices and approaches to support that spiritual growth and development, but they have been underutilized and underrepresented in our adult or all ages spaces in our congregations. Recognizing these 3 points led the UUA Lifespan Faith Engagement team to put together that toolbox of resources I mentioned, which includes a lot of those best practices from RE, like story, song, and creating art. As one of the team members, Joy Berry, puts it, the whole church approach is missional. This means it is intentionally relational. We center human connection and relationship in the work. Positional. We go where people are, and especially where our faithful work can do the most good. And incarnational, embodying, giving life to, and living out our faith values as UUs. At GA, their goal was to create a welcoming and conventional main hall seating. So what did that actually look like at General Assembly? During live programming that took place in the main hall, such as general sessions, service of the living tradition, the Ware lecture, etc., there was an intentionally curated and engaging space set up at the back of the hall with round tables and carpeted open spaces for all ages to gather and explore whole church activities. And this included things like coloring pages suitable for all ages, everything from simple little nature pictures for the littlest kids to complex mandalas to color in for the grown-ups. Embroidery hoops, yoga mats, and yoga decks to practice some of your yoga positions, finger labyrinths, and much more. So many different ways for people of all ages to engage with the moment in whatever way was best for them, be it moving their bodies or quieting their mind with a simple repetitive task. Did the children make noise? Yes. Was it loud? Well, I sat about halfway down the hall for most of the sessions and could only hear the activity from that space behind me when there was a quiet moment in the program, such as when we're changing speakers or waiting for someone to make their way to the stage. Was it distracting? Not in the least. I couldn't help but smile every time I heard them because it was such a wonderful way for us all to be together in that same space and share that same experience. As an aside here, I also like to note how much I appreciated the fact that the main hall also had several rows of tables set up for people to sit like with an open laptop or to catch a bite of dinner in between things. And they had so many monitors in so many different places, so it was really easy to see. And they had captions up on the screens as well as sign language, and we had our favorite sign language interpreters that were the most animated, so that was kind of cool. And also, some people just physically are just more comfortable sitting at a table rather than in a chair for a couple of hours, so I really appreciated that. So anyway, now I want to be clear here. Whole Church RE is not a call to extreme change. No one is saying, no more children's programs, all worship services and fellowship activities will henceforth be all multi-generational. No. Rather, it is an invitation to look at the totality, the whole body of our fellowship, to see where this important faith development work is already happening, and bring that toolbox of faith development resources to bear. Religious educators like to say that everything we do is faith formation. A whole church RE approach allows us to name and claim where energy already exists for growth, for community, for action, for connection. The answers will vary from congregation to congregation, but that energy could possibly be found, for example, in social justice work, grounds work days, social hour, or talent night shows. When we name and claim those congregational efforts as an important part of what we are already doing in faith development, we can use the tools we have learned in RE to build and support those efforts and make them more effective in shaping our UU identity and faith for the whole congregation. It can also help us build a more accessible, diverse, multicultural, multi-generational community with love at the center. And I believe that to truly meet the moment, we are going to need that beloved community more than ever. And that's why I'm looking forward to exploring more about this approach and finding out what might best work for us here at UUFC.
Thank you all for sharing of your experiences today. I'm going to cut some of what I was going to say out because it's hard to know how long we're all going to talk when there's so many of us involved with services. And I would just like to briefly mention that this was my 9th GA, and my first one was right as I was starting the process of becoming a minister. And this one, this year, I got to participate in something called the Service of the Living Tradition. And I got to walk across the stage and shake hands and sit with colleagues that also were celebrating milestones. Mine was a full fellowship, which is kind of like being a full-fledged minister, finally, after 9 years. So that was definitely a highlight for me, and it's something that uplifts our religious educators, our musicians and their networks, and ministers at life transitions for different credentialing, retirement, and honoring those that have passed in the last year. And it was a long service. It lasted almost 2 hours, so you don't have to be here for 2 hours today. I know so many of you are glad about that. But it was a beautiful service, and it was really meaningful to be with so many of my colleagues. And with that said, I'm going to leave it there, and we're going to sing our closing hymn, and then I have some closing words that are a little bit longer, but we have our closing hymn, which is number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do, in the Teal hymnal. And I know sometimes we do pretty well with this one, and sometimes not as much, but we're going to do our best. So if you'll rise in body, mind, wherever you are, to join in singing. Thank y'all. I think we did a pretty good job this time, and so much thanks to the people that laughed occasionally with me on that one. Yes. So again, our closing words are a little bit long. They're from the Reverend Dr. Kimmy Floyd Reich. She wrote this right after General Assembly ended and titled it, "'Twas the Night After General Assembly." 'Twas the night after GA, and all through the halls, echoes of justice still clung to the walls. The banners were folded and ribbons unpinned. The warmth of connection still stirred in the wind. We showed up in Baltimore, bold and alive. Some tuned in from couches with Zoom Hoover vibes. There were signs in the streets and movement online. Folks sharing their stories, both poignant and fine. Some danced by the harbor with joy and pride, while others found spirit from deep down inside. We wore t-shirts with slogans, wore sneakers with sass, took selfies with speakers, gave motions a pass. Sophia preached love with the call to be bold, then Amira's bright, fiery passion broke every mold. Liz named the poor as prophets and seers and called us to action through heartbreak and tears. Gloria spoke truth that rang clear as a bell of law and of power and stories we tell. Then Deepak reminded us justice is care, that movements are strongest when burdens are shared. Some wore top hats, some had jet pigs in tow, some napped through the keynotes, all tucked in a row. We found holy moments in stairwells and halls, in whispers and singing, in quiet phone calls. We belted out hymns of our grandmother's might, while ancestors danced in the shadows of night. Ministers rushed with 3 coffees in tow, whether hugging in person or waving on screens. We were part of the magic in all the in-betweens, so that what you gathered, the joy, grace, and songs, the side eyes, the hope, what felt right and what felt wrong, we'll carry it forward in covenant deep, with faith that wakes, justice, and dreams that don't sleep. GA has ended, but we've just begun to meet the next moment together as one. So rest now, beloveds, may your spirit shine bright. GA will return. Until then, hold on to the light. We'll keep justice and joy close at heart and in hand, and dream of the world we still dare to demand. Let the questions still stir and the memories remain, and make hope the thread that we weave through the strain. Come next year, we'll gather again side by side, knowing we rose to the moments with love as our guide. And may love continue to guide us in all that we do. Go in peace and return in love.